Welcome. Yes, my friends, this is the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, and I am your host, Robert Cluse, and welcome to the podcast. This is number 29 in the podcast series. I hope everybody's doing fantastic out there, and yes, I have a new / old turntable. A friend of mine named Joseph back in Georgia in the United States found out that my old Ibon gave up the ghost a couple of months ago. I love Ibon turntables. I might be in the minority, but I do love those turntables. Found out about it and emailed me and said, hey, I've got the exact same type of turntable that you have. I've just upgraded. Do you want me to send you my own turntable? And I said, absolutely. So we bartered a little bit and came up with a nice bartering solution to it, and he sent me his old turntable, and I have it now. It's working swimmingly. I'm pleased as punch to actually have a turntable again. It was rough being without a turntable for a while, folks, and having all of this beautiful, fantastic vinyl to not be able to play it was just was soul crushing. So I'm very, very glad that I have a turntable again to play at my leisure and play for the podcast for you fine people. So without further ado, let's get to it. This will be the Christmas episode, a very special Christmas episode of the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, and I just could not be more happier to spotlight this particular record. So let's get right to it. This is by the Robertson-Wesley United Church Bell Ringers in the West End here in Edmonton. This is from 1986. And doesn't have a specific date on it, but I'm gonna guess right around there. The name of the album is called Celebration, and it was a celebration of 20 years of the handbell choir under the direction now for 1986 of William C. Hutton. And I'll read a little bit of the liner notes as we go on here at the podcast. I know people are shocked a little bit when they find out that I'm an aficionado of this type of music. I love this type of music. Me being a punk rock guy, a free jazz and avant-garde kind of music dude. But I love this music. It is hypnotic. It is mesmerizing. It is calming. It's the type of music that is very meditation-like. I can't say enough about it. I really got into this type of music when I spotlighted the Harry Ainley High School Handbell Choir from 1983, I believe, on a previous Vintage Edmonton Music podcast, and just really fell in love with it. So I'm pleased as punch to spotlight this particular record. So let's get to it, won't you? Without further ado, the first one I'm going to play for you today is An English Christmas by Douglas Wagner. And again, it's just beautiful, hypnotic, mesmerizing, meditative music. So without further ado, this is the Robertson-Wesley, I keep saying Wellesley, Robertson-Wesley Ringers and the Robertson-Wesley United Church here in Edmonton, recorded at the church itself. Incredible acoustics. So without further ado, this is An English Christmas on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was the Robertson-Wesley Ringers from the Robertson-Wesley United Church here in Edmonton with a song called English Christmas. This is dedicated, and I'm going to read the back cover for you. This is a dedication. The record is dedicated to the memory of Bill McClellan. Bill's sudden death in 1985 was a great sadness to all of us. He loved the bells and encouraged us in every way. The completion of this record is a credit to his loving persistence. So there you go. I'm not going to go on and on and on and tell you how much I love this type of music. I think it speaks for itself. It's, again, just very, very mesmerizing, very, very hypnotic. So let's listen to it a little bit more here. My favorite cut off of this record, again, and it's maybe you wouldn't expect it out of me, but I do. I love this song called Jazzy Jingle Bells. Yes, jazzy jingling bells. Sorry about that. Jazzy Jingling Bells. And it's arranged by Mary Engel. And it's what you would expect. It's a jazzy jingling bells with a Christmas themed type of motif, if you will. So without further ado, this is the Robertson-Wesley Ringers from the Robertson-Wesley United Church here in Edmonton with a song called Jazzy Jingling Bells on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was the Robertson-Wesley United Church Handbell Choir, Robertson-Wesley Ringers, with a song called Jazzy Jingling Bells. Jazzy Jingling Bells, arranged by Mary Engel. I'm going to read the back cover liner notes to give you a little bit more of a good info of what's going on here. So I'm going to start right now. 1986 marks the 20th anniversary of handbell ringing at the Robertson-Wesley United Church. 2 octaves of bells were purchased in 1966, and the first handbell choir was established by Mr. G. Douglas Milson, then the music director of the church. Mr. Milson directed the handbells until 1974, then added 2 more octaves to the church's collection. Handbell ringing continued under the direction of Bob Freese, Bruce Wheatcroft, and Allison Wood until 1980, when Bill Hutton became the director. Under his leadership, the Robertson-Wesley Ringers have developed into an internationally known performing choir and have added an additional 5 octave set of bells as well as choir choir chimes. Let's try that again. Choir chimes to the collection of instruments. The Ringers have taken part in the National Handbell Festival's the 1985 Tri-Box celebrations. They've recorded for the CBC and have recently participated in the International Handbell Symposium in Gatama, Japan, and completed a concert tour of 6 Japanese cities. That's pretty cool. 6 Japanese cities. This recording is in celebration of the first 20 years of handbell ringing at the Robertson-Wesley United Church. Well, there you go. This is a very well-known, very fascinating, very internationally acclaimed handbell choir. I have a link to the handbell choir on the podcast page, so go check them out. They are still going strong, and again, it's just very hypnotic, very mesmerizing music. So we're gonna get into the next one that we're gonna play here. This is a classic Christmas-themed, holiday-themed song. This is a song called O Tannenbaum. This one was arranged by Betty Garcia from the collection of 3 Christmas Carols. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful holiday music. So without further ado, this is the Robertson-Wesley Handbell Choir Ringers on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was the Robertson-Wesley Ringers from the Robertson-Wesley United Church here in Edmonton with a song called O Tannenbaum. And now the last one I'm going to play for you here on the podcast, being a Christmas-themed podcast. This is my favorite Christmas song. Yes, I have a favorite Christmas song. Well, one of them anyway. This is one of my favorite Christmas songs, and my favorite song off the Christmas canon of well-known Christmas songs, I guess. It's a song called We Wish You a Merry Christmas. Everybody knows it. Everybody's heard it. Again, this is just beautiful majesty. That's all I can say about it. So without further ado, this is the Robertson-Wesley Handbell Choir, the Robertson-Wesley Ringers, with a song called We Wish You a Merry Christmas here in the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. Wasn't that beautiful? That was just majestic. That was the Robertson-Wesley Ringers from the Robertson-Wesley United Church here in Edmonton. Just majestic. I really hope you enjoy this as much as I do. I love this music, and thank you so much for the Robertson-Wesley Church to cultivate the handbell choir, and it's still going strong, like I've said. So go check them out. The audio engineer on this was Don Susi. The photographs were by C.W. Hill. The cover design and art by Garnett Thomas, and the technical production by Kennedy Recordings. And it was a great way to end this particular podcast season, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. I wanted to give a couple of shout outs to the people who have cultivated and helped me with the podcast and helped me with the website. I'm going to start off with, obviously, Mrs. Recluse. If not for Mrs. Recluse being dragged to garage sales, thrift stores, rummage sales, community sales, flea markets, estate sales all around Edmonton and the surrounding countryside for the past decade, but really past decade, but especially the last year, that the podcast wouldn't happen. So thank you so much, Mrs. Recluse. I love you, baby. I appreciate everything. And without her, this wouldn't happen. So I thank you so much, honey. I wanted to also give a shout out to Karen Unland, who runs the Alberta Podcast Network, and also Seen and Heard in Edmonton and Seen and Heard in Yegg with the podcast and the website. Karen has been a great friend to the website and a great friend to the podcast. She's helped me out immensely over the years, and I can't thank her enough for her mentorship and her help in getting the word out for the podcast and getting her word out for Vintage Evans. And so, Karen, thank you so much for your friendship, especially. What am I going to do with the Vintage Edmonton podcast next year? It is going to be, and I've heard your email. I read your emails, and I've had a few asking me why I haven't been playing more of the hard rock type of music for the podcast. And I'm going to rectify that, my friends, by doing that next year. I'm going to be playing the legendary Jim Gray and the band Darkroom next year. I'll also be playing some more stuff by One Horse Blue, Mavis McCauley, some very interesting music that I picked up in the last couple of months also that kind of spread things around. But there will be more of a rock and roll type of a motif, I think, for the podcast next year. And I hope you enjoy that. I am having such a blast doing this. And from the letters that I've received and the emails I've received and the text I've received, you seem to be enjoying it as much as I do. So thank you so much for that. One thing that I wanted to make sure that you all heard about next year, starting in January, actually, on the Vintage Edmonton website, I'm going to be doing a 30-day, I won't say it's a live tweeting, but I'll be tweeting every single day in real time about the 1918 flu pandemic that hit not only here in Edmonton, but in Alberta and Calgary, in Canada, and around the world. It was a huge pandemic, anywhere from 20 million to upwards to 100 million people. They really don't have specific numbers on it, but a lot of people, they'll say 50 million as a baseline here, were killed in a very short period of time in this pandemic. I'm about to do a special series of posts on Vintage Edmonton about this in real time again, because it really hit the Edmonton area and Alberta and Calgary very hard in a very short period of time. Again, 6-7 weeks. Edmonton in 1918 had a population of about 53,000 people. Several hundred people just in the Edmonton area died of this pandemic in a 6-7 week period. And it was a very heavy, very big thing. And very fascinating to read newspaper accounts of it. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's probably going to start on January 1st or January 2nd of 2018. So I hope you enjoy that. I am very excited to springness on all you fine people. The Vintage Edmonton site will go on as before. I will have alternate postings, of usual Vintage Edmonton stuff and ephemera things on Friday and all of that kind of stuff. The Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast will be back at the end of January. I'm going to take the end of this year off, as I usually do, and be back for another season of the podcast. And as always, I am on iTunes. You can subscribe to me on iTunes. Yes, I am on the TuneIn Radio app. You can subscribe to me there. Yes, I am on Google Play Music. You can subscribe to me there. And yes, I'm on Podomatic. You can subscribe to me there as well. I have some more things in the pike as far as what I'm going to do with the podcast, what I'm going to do with the website in 2018. There'll be a little bit of a change as far as how I do things. That's all I'm going to say. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but it'll be for good. I promise you it'll be for good. And I'm pleased as punch that both the website and both the podcast have really grown in listenership. I did not expect this when I first started the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast or the Vintage Edmonton website in 2012. So thank you so much for all of the people who go to the website every single day and go to the podcast every month and listen to the podcast. Thank you, folks. Without you, believe me, I would be talking to the wall, drinking a lot of coffee, listening to music, and it wouldn't be nearly as fun as talking to all you fine people and sharing all of the things that I have here in my little upstairs recording room and my little upstairs library for Vintage Edmonton stuff. Thank you so much. And without further ado, I'll see you next year.